Welcome back to the Wellness Paradox. I'm so grateful that you can join us on this journey towards greater human flourishing. As always, I'm your host, Michael Stack, an exercise physiologist by training and a health entrepreneur and a health educator by trade. And I'm fascinated by a phenomena I call the wellness paradox. This paradox, as I view it, is the trust, interaction, and communication gap that exists between fitness professionals and our medical community. This podcast is all about closing off that gap by disseminating the latest, most evidence-based, and most engaging information in the health sciences. And to do that in episode 112, to close 2023, we're going to do something a little different. It's what we did in episode 100, where we spliced together 15 answers to how certain guests would address the wellness paradox. That was such an overwhelming success, and I got so much positive feedback from all of you on that episode that that's exactly what I decided to do here in episode 112 to end 2023. We're going to take all the guests from this past year, from Tom Johnston in episode 87 on being the CEO of your own life, to Hassan Barnes in episode 111, where we talked about limiting liability as a fitness professional, and everyone in between. And we're going to splice out their answer to how they would address the wellness paradox to serve it up back to you for your consideration as you go into the new year. I want to thank all of you very much for joining us on our journey towards addressing the wellness paradox in 2023. I'm confident that 2024 will be another year of great challenges, great information, and many great steps towards addressing the wellness paradox. With that said, please enjoy episode 112 of the Wellness Paradox, our recap of 2023.
Well, I gotta just say, Mike, I mean, I can't necessarily speak to what the gap is, quite frankly. I haven't spent enough time to understand, what, and analyze the gap, right? I think when we're elevating ourselves as true fitness professionals, and it really is about education. Right? Like to play at that next level, you need to have the education, the experience, the certifications, whatever it might be to baseline prove that, hey, I have the knowledge and I have and then the expertise. And then you have to be, then you have to work at work at your craft. Like really practice your craft and again becoming the best version of yourself. And I think it's always about sharpening your saw and constantly being a learner, and then being able to speak the language of healthcare, of a healthcare professional, and then recognizing that they're just people. And so the reality is that oftentimes, the fitness professional, right, is going to come to the table with way more knowledge about fitness, exercise, science, etc., than a physician will. Right? And so now you have this level of expertise. And so recognizing that you're, I'm going to say that you're equals and you're partnered here, and the partnership is around, let's take care of the client, the patient. And that's the commonality. And how do we partner to take the best care of this person? And the reality is that you, as the fitness professional, are going to spend a hell of a lot more time with that individual than the physician is, and you're going to probably know their body in ways that physician is never going to know their bodies. And so being able to speak that language, is and educate the medical, the medical community on what it is that you do and the difference that you're making in those people's lives. And I think ultimately it comes down to, as you start to work and partner with a physician, and all of a sudden that physician, 6 months after they've seen the person, they come back into their office and they're like, holy cow, what have you done?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need the meds anymore, right? You're walking, whatever it might be. Like, you have the ability to really impact these people's lives in ways that a physician can't, flat, straight up.
I think that's a really challenging one. I think
again, a lot of this comes back to taking time to getting to know each other's roles. And I feel like because I interviewed healthcare professionals in my PhD, I think they also need to take time to get to know what the exercise professional's role, their knowledge, their capability, their experience. But I think it's really about getting to know each other's roles, and taking time to develop that trust and realizing that, you know, we both are here for the same purpose. We both want to help improve the client's lives. And I think healthcare professionals need to realize that exercise professionals have the luxury perhaps of more time, especially in the context of the UK with that person, for instance. So we need to be on the same team. So yeah, taking time to develop that trust. But a lot of that does come into the organizational and, you know, challenges of the healthcare system. Yeah.
I think that physical professionals have become more involved in some medical training, more education as far as exercise physiology, and where that means, I know some of them are nutrition, they may not have that. And some of the things we're teaching and getting Cooperage to get them involved, get the professionals to feel. We have over 20 full-time professional trainers here, and they're doing extremely well because they've embraced the concept that exercise is medicine. And so the two do go together. Now, that's the coin that we use. Dr. Ted Mitchell is now the chancellor of Texas Tech, who worked for me for 20 years, the CEO of our clinic here. He used that in the presentation of our College of Sports Medicine. Aerobics, that exercise is medicine. Now that has been the byword for the American College of Sports Medicine, exercise is medicine. So get that together. Get the physical education people involved in more medical training, and get the medical doctors more involved in exercise training. We got to get that paradox out of the way. And we can do that because I know we're getting more and more physicians want to get involved in the work we're doing here. That's why I'm getting all these invitations to speak. But I want to do that, I've mentioned several times, with these documentaries we're working on. So I think that can be a giant step in the proper direction. But it may be mandated by the people, not led by the physician. Because, you know, people don't change our problem with with problems. What the government demands we do, it's what we decide to do for ourselves. The government's not going to do it. And so we have to do this ourselves. But I found that the patients come back, as I said, because it's that we come back for a very complex examination, because we've proven over the years we can prevent Alzheimer's dementia, do things like that. If we can't prevent Alzheimer's and cancer, but for Alzheimer's and cancer, we can reduce the likelihood of it by having this very complex examination. But it has to be an educational motivation experience. We only see 4 patients a day, because our physicians spend an hour and a half with these patients, because we want to educate and motivate our patients. That's why they come back, get up-to-date information when we're talking, and give them recommendations that are safe, effective, and realistic. Don't tell them things that are totally unrealistic. They'll discourage them, they'll never come back, but then get them back. That's the 4-step improvement. That's a 4-step program that we use to try to get our patients involved in our programs. And that's why 74% of return patients. So to get that message across to the physical education community, get that medication, that presentation that I've done into the field of physical education. Maybe you'll find more physician medical societies want some of the people from the physical education society, physical exercise physiology society, to lecture to their donors. I've done that to medical groups already. Of course, I'm a physician, I can identify with it, but have an outsider. But one thing I'm telling these physical education people, you know, the best thing to prevent progression of Parkinsonism is exercise. Do you know that? That's the only thing that has really been proven, that exercise can slow down the progression of Alzheimer's. That's why we have a program here at our Center for Alzheimer's Patients. It's a dance patient, and we've seen that improvement. So you people out there in physical education ought to start branching out to other things. On the top of that list may be special programs for people with Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. We're working at the Atlantic Club down in New Jersey just recently. We have a program down there with our concepts program and all. And I was pleased to see they have a very dynamic program for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's patients, because they've shown the same thing that we're seeing. You can slow down and even reverse some of those changes that people get when they get the all you get from Parkinson's disease. They don't know that. And so some of these things, and I said the possibility of reducing Alzheimer's dementia by just controlling weight and exercising, why don't they know that in the physical education field? And so go on your own there and start doing some studies among the members of your club, and document the people that are following your programs. Do they get chronic diseases? Or are they seeing the same thing we're seeing? They're prolonging lives, reducing death from all causes. So you might want to get some research involved in some of these physical education programs, health clubs around the country, around the world. So I think there's a bridge we're beginning to back. For years, I've been trying to bridge the gap between faddism and scientific legitimacy. You take exercise in the practice of medicine. But now the results are too impressive to be ignored.
I think it's really networking and showing your experience, especially, those of you who are listening who are like, yep, check the box. I've already got, some sort of certification for working with people with disabilities or something like that. I think it's kind of reaching out and seeing how you can support them to better support, their patients. One of the things, I actually had a conversation just a little bit ago with a doctor who focuses on working with people with Down syndrome. And this is true, I think, with many doctors that serve people with disabilities, is they often get very focused on some of the elements that are specific to the disability, which leaves them less time to support some of the more chronic disease needs, right? And they don't even know where to recommend, how do you get more active, how do you, all of those pieces. And so you as a fitness professional can be that person. You can, you've shared with your, with the doctors in your area that you have that knowledge and you can support and fill that gap for them. And so I think it really is just making sure that, you've recognized or you've shared that you're a resource in that area.
I think it's exactly what we're doing now. I think that that we always think that this is going as a one-way street. For example, me speaking to the fitness professional. But a lot of what I say, a lot of what I do, a lot of the research that I've done, and a lot of the ways I present is really coming from the other direction. For years, I traveled around and lectured on the fitness stage. And I learned how to present the information. And I also learned what was of interest to the individual who's working with an older population. And I think that this is a very, very important two-way street for us, that you should not consider us people who work in isolation in a laboratory somewhere and don't consider what you're doing. And we should not consider you someone who's working in a gym that has no idea what we're talking about. I remember when I first went to teach, someone said to me, I told someone I was going to teach force velocity curve and what it had to do with modifications in training. And I was going to relate that to bioenergetics. And the person told me, you can't teach that because no one will be able to pick it up. And I think that is a tremendous insult to the fitness population, because not only could they pick it up, they could teach me things that I didn't know. So my recommendation is attend things like this. Invite us to come and talk to you so that we can exchange ideas, because I need to know what the problems are out there in the fitness community so that I can design my training in order to do that. We do all clinical studies. And so I need to know what the best clinical question is. And so we're more than happy to have that interaction. And I think that that's an important thing.
I would love it if we would stop seeing ourselves as separate entities. It takes a village to help people, and it doesn't mean that you're not enough, that you're not doing your job. You're one person. So talk to your clients' doctors, to have an arsenal of therapists, nutritionists, doctors that you recommend to people that you trust. Have open communication, because we need to work together. It's way overdue that it's like, oh, doctors, you do that, trainers, we do that, and we refuse to meet in the middle. We really, like you said, I love that term, bridge that gap. It's been way too long. There's a trust to be had. Really embrace sharing what you know with your clients' doctors. It can really change their programming. It could change their results if you know what's going on with them.
Oh, I love that question. I think get outside yourself and your ego, because I think a lot of fitness professionals will try to interact with the clinical population or clinicians rather, and get really discouraged really fast. Oh, I left a voicemail, they didn't follow up. Oh, I sent them a letter, they didn't follow up. Or, oh, they think they know more than me. It's like, well, they do know more than you in their area. Yes. It's so, or, oh, I don't come across, I'm not respected. You know, I think as long as you come across as someone who doesn't know everything, and all your goal is to provide as much value to the people that clinician sees, and you are prepared with the research and the science on that, and you're able to say, yet, according to these studies, exercise is good for this population. Do you agree? And most people should agree. Is like, and in addition to that, if we consider these variables, which are sometimes barriers to participation in exercise for this population, do you agree? I'm actually very much driven to gather continued education or education I've already taken to address this population. I'd love to work with one or two of your clients, provide some progress, or patients, provide some progress notes. I'll do it at a discounted rate. Let's do a trial and see how we work together. And you could wash, rinse, and repeat with 3, 5, 10 clinicians. I've done it with psychologists, neurologists, psychiatrists, other physical therapists. And as long as you maintain that humility and show that you're willing to do your homework, and you're not coming across as cocky, or you don't follow up less than 2 times and give up, I think you'll be more successful than not.
To close off the gap, I think it's more of like what I want, where we're starting to see the shift, and what I want fitness professionals to realize is we're starting to see this shift where fitness professionals are going to start to become that first intermediary before primary care. Right? With the accessibility to all of these new technologies that we're seeing come out, and things that we're seeing that we have access to either on your phone or within a gym, boutique, whatever that kind of setting is, wellness center setting, that is then going to be kind of that bridge to, hey, it might be time to go see your primary care. Or there might be, with telehealth now these days, there might be primary care already integrated within that, saying, hey, we flagged something, we're going to recommend that you maybe go see, this primary care, or hey, go to your primary care, specifically to interpret your results or understand your results on a deeper level, because we see a flag. So I see it going there, and really want to encourage everyone that's within this fitness industry and kind of wellness industry to take pride that you're going to be that first line of understanding someone's health and wellness, and then being able to direct them and guide them on the proper steps to further take care of their health.
Oh, it's just such a good question. And so give me 1 second here and get my thoughts together. I think I might have even said it earlier, and so I'll just reuse my own thing. 2 things. One is remove ego. And I think that comes from all of us, right? So fitness professionals and our identity is so locked up in that. And I think the medical profession is the same. Coming from a medical family and background, I see it. And number 2, don't let simple be considered simplistic. And I just really, when I think about that, I don't mean it in a Puritan sense, but I think about, we're a society of people who have lived and worked and have agriculture, been touching the earth and been outdoors, and then we lost that. And we actually are having to go back to remind ourselves what it's like to be outdoors and be comfortable outdoors. And it's almost hard work to make it simple, because we've removed that tolerance and that grit. And so I just would encourage us all to think about, we might not have all the analytics, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. We don't necessarily need we need the studies. I don't want to misquote that, but we don't need to overthink it. I think we just need to move people. We need to be healthier as a society, and this is one strategy to do it. There's no one right way.
The advice that I would give is to really believe and act on the fact that we are all in this together, regardless of what degree you have behind your name. We are all focused on having a healthier world. It is our world's greatest asset to have healthy communities. And that's what our goal is. So there isn't them and us. And believing in that means acting it out. So when you're a fitness professional and you notice that something's not quite right about someone's health, and maybe something as sensitive as hearing loss, it is your responsibility to address it, to bring it up, of course, in a respectful way. That doesn't mean diagnosing. It doesn't mean overstepping your boundaries. It means driving awareness. And I think that if we all take responsibility for recognizing we're working toward a common goal, and if we can responsibly drive awareness around important issues that are outside of our lane, I think we'll have a better healthcare system.
We need to convince the medical practitioners how good we are. And if we don't do that, then we can't expect them to come to us. And honestly, as you have that conversation, which I've had with practitioners for years, they're leery to send their folks to us because they're not sure how well trained we are. Now, in their defense, in terms of the medical practitioners, we've lost, because of COVID, a lot of folks with experience have retired from the industry. So those folks have a track record and a reputation that's very credible. So now we have to start over to reintroduce the skill sets of a great fitness professional to take the handoff from the medical practitioners to continue that journey to success. The handoff has got to take place, but we have to have mutual respect and understanding as to where their practice begins, where it ends, where we begin, and where we end. And again, just take those folks to the end result, which is whatever their goals from a health, fitness, wellness standpoint happen to be.
Gosh, that is so hard. Have you been to Exos? Have you ever seen in Scottsdale?
Mm-hmm.
What I wish a fitness professional do or could do is treat me like an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
All my medical professionals should have all the same data about my activity levels, my health history, my functional movement screens, because everybody should be able to see that information and give me feedback or input on how to keep me going and how to keep me moving. That would be the one thing that I would love to see in health clubs, is more of a team approach.
Oh man, I think it's just being able, to me, of closing the gap. I think when you're doing it, and it really kind of goes back to registration. I think is that gap, because I think that's when I first got here in 2017. I think there's a couple things that kind of led me to kind of registration is really kind of the key. A lot of it is because it distills a lot of the way I would consider prepared to do it. So I think it's just like, and then using like to like terms. I think that's kind of like, I guess, a simple version of it. But I will say that I guess it's like, if you're going to press me on how to answer it, I think it's programs over people. That when, and I think we did a survey at ACSM of our physicians, and I think it's just like, and there was like really kind of 3 survey questions. It's a really elegant survey, which really kind of like captured, I think, a lot of what we see in the industry. One is, what is your level of trust as a physician to refer to specifically an exercise professional who has education, training, experience? About 50%, which is kind of scary. We're like going, oh my gosh, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then it's, what is your level of trust that you have of referring to a facility that is run by qualified professionals, which I kind of described? About 50%. The third one was, what is your trust to send them to a program that has measurable outcomes, key performance indicators of improving health, wellness, etc.? Nearly 100%. So I think that, to me, if you're going to bridge the gap between both, it's the effective programs to set the level of trust between the program that you're delivering and connecting it to healthcare. Because if you can adjust that and go, okay, look, we're running a cardiac rehab program, a pulmonary rehab program, diabetes prevention program, exercise oncology program, the program that is shown to have efficacy in the research and is improving health and well-being and reducing costs, that program is really the key. Now, in order to run an efficacious program that reduces risk, it has to be delivered by qualified people. that to me, if you're gonna connect the two, is what needs to happen. And so it's working with this really kind of ties in the research that we see at the universities that are happening, working with the employer sector and healthcare, and being able to connect them all together. So this is the education, the training, the experience, everything else. Effective programs, I think, is our way in. And so I think that to me, there are a number of tentacles that come out of it, of those effective programs. But for the Coalition for the Registration of Exercise Professionals, you have to get minimally qualified. You have to be registered in order to be a part of that, because we cannot break that trust. And therefore, you have to meet these other components that deliver these types of programs that can show those KPIs that healthcare needs and the way they need it. I think that's our way ahead. I know that was kind of like it started off as just the registration, but really to me, I think it's, if you're bridging that gap, it's effective programs.
Probably plan of attack, a strategic plan. I have to say that my husband made me put a business plan together before I opened my brick and mortar. And it was the most excruciating, painful, because in our profession, we're all like, just do it, right? Nike, just do it. And it was hard, but it was the best thing, because when I had that, even though it didn't stay the same, I knew what I needed to do. I knew where I needed to focus. And then that was easier to plan an attack or a guide. I do the same thing with clients, right? We have to have a goal. We have to find what you're willing to do. And then we can form a solution. But without that, and that's another thing about your company, that bridging of the gap and providing these podcasts, education, more of this needs to happen. And we all have to be, play in the same big blue ocean together.
Yeah, so for me, the more we can come from a needs-based consciousness, the more likely we are to connect. So if I think of it as us versus them, that mentality is going to maintain the gap. But if I can say, wow, there's this gap there, I wonder what's going on for them, and wherever we're not aligned, what's going on for us. Let's check in with the needs. So to me, and I'm not sure if there a specific, if you were going to say something that comes up for you in the gap, I'm as a medical doctor, what would you say is one of the gaps or contributors to the gap?
You actually just said it. It's the kind of us versus them siloed mindset. So I really I enjoy that you brought it back to that kind of needs-based perspective.
Right. So that's really important. And I think we have a lot of work to do as doctors to come back to the same level, put ourselves on the same playing field as our patients and all of our other colleagues, right? We're all the same. We all have different skills. We all have different competencies, and we all can contribute and ultimately have the same goals, which is helping people feel better and live better. So the more we can get rid of that, those levels, and I think that's going to take time. So if you're a wellness professional and you're experiencing it, instead of sort of judging it back, so let's say you have an experience where somebody, your judgment is they are talking down to me or they're disregarding me. Imagine if I came back with care and sort of empathy and saying, I'm imagining what I'm saying, isn't landing well for you, or is it a little bit unclear as to why I'm valuing doing X, Y, or Z, and you're prioritizing A, B, and C. Would you like to connect around that? Right. So I'm not judging them and saying, see, they're doing that again. I'm sort of trying to bridge and empathize and be with them. So the more I can get a hold of my sort of hate or judgments, which is my work to do, I think the more we're going to come together versus trying to change the other person.
Very well said.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it in that word silo. For me, it's really about the intention of collaboration. We have become very siloed. And, you know, it's the medical or the wellness or the nutrition or the trauma informed or, you know, meditation or whatever it is has just become their own silo. And we forget we're a whole person and there's room for everyone. And that collaboration just makes us stronger. And so I think setting that intention and coming from that intention and seeing where do we have the opportunities to collaborate and to elevate both of our fields.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is honest. This starts with becoming aware of the paradox in itself. And then once that awareness is cultivated, I do think on the fitness side of things, we need to educate ourselves or at least get connected with some type of entity or person to educate us around what is actually happening in the healthcare landscape and how we could be, you know, a big part of solving that problem. I think it's not lost on me, you, and probably a lot of other fitness owners or fitness professionals that when COVID hit, that basically was the world saying what you guys do isn't all that important. And if that didn't rile you up, then I don't know what does. But that visceral emotion, at least for me, is going to cause me to seek to understand what is the problem that exists right now in our current healthcare climate, get educated, and then find out ways that you can start to help. So education in one word, Michael.
I would say be a champion of this change. Take things in your own hands and change the environment around you. Educate as many people as possible around you about the virtues of bridging the gap. And empower them to do the same. So this chain reaction will spread throughout the medical community and people will hear the message and will start paying attention and thinking how to extend their hand to you.
Absolutely.
I would say communicate with the people that you know that are providers. Start a conversation. Find out what they have on their day-to-day or what their day-to-day looks like with patients, because it helps you at least understand what's going on in that world. Like I said, it's a system problem, and I think it needs to be fixed all the way back at the roots with education way down the road. But those conversations that you have with a doctor, a nurse practitioner, even a registered dietitian that comes into the gym, that open communication is step one, because open communication leads to maybe more ideas, more referrals for you if you're, you know, they like what they're seeing and they're able to refer some patients over to you.
Really to value the work that you do in exercise and fitness as that single best thing for help, and it's not at all adversarial with the work for medical weight loss, and that your patients will benefit at any size, and that you know, I wish that we had an exercise physiologist embedded in all of our clinics. I really wish every patient could have a consultation. So trying to form those partnerships so that your services are accessible to us as well would be great.
Close off that gap. I probably would say that, and this is going to sound really interesting, but I would probably say that there shouldn't be a gap. And I say that because fitness is medicine.
Yeah.
They are hand in hand. So doing a workout is just as important and just as beneficial as taking the drug, right? That it can actually, like, we're now seeing studies that are saying it can heal Parkinson's disease using movement, right? That we've been looking at movement and fitness all the wrong way. That now conversations like this we're having where we can say, hey, let's look at this not from two separate lenses or two separate spaces that we're trying to merge, but rather let's look at it as a coalesce thing. That there is no separation, that fitness and wellness should be one and the same as medicine. And that as with doctors and practitioners, they have to figure out how do they make that coalesce, that collision, because that is where we're at as a society, is not just saying, oh, I'll just add this in later, or, oh, it's just too much work to throw in some fitness into my regimen. But it becomes like, this is the prescription. That sure, you have doctors, but how would it be a society if a patient comes in and they're like, hey, I'm having all these issues, and the doctor writes a prescription and says, hey, I'm prescribing you to go do fitness.
Yeah.
And here are the providers that we have. Like, how would a society change if that became the new language? So where I think that is where we need to be going, to this point that it's not us in this umbrella, but it's us in this intermix.
Well, I hope you enjoyed all those answers to how we would address the wellness paradox as much as I did. If you found this episode insightful and informative, please share with your friends and colleagues. Those shares make a big difference for us. Any information we'd like to share with you from today's episode can be found on the show notes page. That's by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 112. Please be on the lookout for our next episode when it drops in 2 weeks. And don't forget to subscribe through your favorite podcast platform. Have a happy new year, and until we chat again next, please be well